Hub, and today we'll be concluding our September webinar series, Healing Across Generations. Our prevention consultant, Jennifer Destra, will be presenting Leaders and Burnout, Restoring Balance in a Workplace and Beyond. Some information about Jennifer Destra is a prevention consultant at NJ4S Union, but her path to the mental health field wasn't always the plan. With a background in finance and professional sales, she made the switch after realizing how much mental health impacts every part of life, especially in communities where it's often overlooked. Now, as a master's student in school in clinical mental health counseling, she's dedicated to breaking cultural stigmas, making resources more accessible, and creating safe spaces for people from marginalized backgrounds to heal and grow. Outside of work, Jennifer creates content on holistic healing, self-discovery, and embracing authenticity. She's all about exploring new places, trying new things, soaking in scenic views, spending quality time with loved ones, and of course, enjoying good food. So without further ado, I'll just let Jen take over now.
All right. Thank you so much. Today, we're talking about leaders and burnout and restoring balance in the workplace and beyond the workplace. I'm really excited about this topic because I feel like when we're talking about healing, we need to address both areas where you're thriving, you're passionate about what you're doing, and you're discovering a lot of things, but also the areas that may not feel so great. So today, the objective is that today we're going to be talking about understanding what exactly burnout is, how to recognize patterns, and something called crazy makers that I got from this book that I've been reading, reflecting on personal leadership, your purpose, your values, and learning some practical strategies on how to avoid burnout or what to do when you feel like you're beginning to become burnout. So in talking about this, burnout is something that's very common, but let's talk about what makes you a leader. So everyone has the capability to become a leader, but what separates leadership is you embrace responsibility, you take ownership of certain things, and you're willing to hold yourself accountable to being a part of a bigger purpose. Another thing that makes you a leader is that you care deeply about outcomes and people. So you're focused on results. You have more of an empathetic point of view of things, and you want to see that the things that you're producing bear fruit. Another reason that makes you a leader is that you carry vision and inspire others. You step up when others step back. So this is a huge part of leadership because you're willing to take the challenge. You're willing to step up to the plate, even when it's something difficult. But the reminder I want to give you guys today is that the same passion that makes you a leader shouldn't be the same thing that burns you out. As we go throughout this presentation, we're going to be talking and discussing about how to balance certain things because your passion can drive you to the edge sometimes if you're not regulating. But it's not about equal parts. It's about finding alignment in everything that you do. So what is exactly burnout? Burnout is more than just being tired. Obviously, you have a long day. People's schedules are different. One thing I think about when I'm thinking about adulting is that you constantly have to balance multiple hats and multiple different roles. And of course, naturally, your body is going to get tired, but it's bigger than that. It's actually chronic physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion. So defined by the 3 dimensions from the World Health Organization, it's a category of feeling complete exhaustion. So feeling completely worn out. So even after you're tired, you're still feeling like you have no energy, like you can't put your best foot forward. It's also this idea of cynicism where you start to disconnect from people or purpose. You're almost skeptical about everything, or you're doubting yourself or doubting things, or you're just basically tuned out, checked out. That's what we call it. And then reduced effectiveness. So this is when you struggle to perform tasks you once did easily. So you'll find yourself maybe starting to forget a lot of things, or you used to do these things so easily, or maybe there's a shift somewhere, or maybe you're feeling overworked. So now it's like you're overcrowded. And we're going to get into a little bit of that. So some symptoms of burnout, going based off of those three dimensions is that you'll have the constant fatigue even after you rest. You can even find yourself oversleeping while you have burnout because you're constantly tired. And it's because it's not a it's not a physical tiredness, it's a mental stress. Another symptom of burnout is that you have irritability. So things start to bother you a lot more. You could find yourself stressed and overthinking about a lot. And it can even result in just physical ailments, just cloud fog, detachment. So going again, like you're feeling starting to lose sight of that purpose. You're starting to like distance yourself from people. You're starting to just feel like present but not present, like you're in the room but you're not here, or just distrust. And that's going back to that cynicism where you almost don't really, like, you doubt the process, or you doubt yourself, or you don't trust the process anymore because it's just kind of like you feel like now it's been taken away from your purpose. Another symptom of burnout is that loss of creativity or passion. We often think that leadership and just like taking charge of a lot of tasks require you to be type A, need to just handle everything at once and just needs to be like by the book, like very strict. But creativity, passion actually requires a sense of freedom. It requires time to work and time to play. Like you need a balance of both space and rest to be able to feel your creativity and feel your well, but also time to plan as well too. So having that burnout, you could lose that creativity, you could lose your passion, lose your why, and we're going to get into that. And then increased mistakes, forgetfulness, or struggling with simple tasks. And a huge symptom of burnout, and this is something that even I struggle with as well, is you sometimes may feel guilty for needing rest. You're not aware with yourself because you feel like you always have to be on. So my question for you guys is, which of these signs feel most familiar to you right now? I know for me personally, there was a season where I was feeling a bit burnt out. I was tired. Like I could sleep 12 hours a day and I would still be tired. And it wasn't because my body's exhausted. It's because my brain was exhausted. So I started doing this thing called morning pages, or I started like journaling more and just finding different things. So we're going to get into that. But these are good symptoms to basically see if you are in a season of burnout or you're heading towards burnout. So let's talk a little bit about the culture, because hustle culture is in. Like everybody feel like you got to be on all the time, you got to be doing this, that, and the third, and the pressure to overperform is real. The leadership culture, when you think of a leader, you think of someone that works hard, you think of someone that like you think of someone that just handles everything, and they help teams understand the bigger picture. But there's a problem where like they reward over performance, reward hustling. They reward the person who lose sleep, lose endless nights doing it everything. And then it also makes you feel like you got to do it all. You got to do everything all at once. And, it creates this ongoing pressure for you to be on. And then at the end of the day, everything costs something. The cost to be a leader is a great responsibility. But when you're not balancing or stewarding it well, it can cost you your mental health. It can cost you your relationships because you're not making time for things that matter. Yes, your goals can matter, but there are people along the way that are supporting you. You need to cater to those relationships, cater to those wells as well too. And it may cost you your creativity. Getting lost in the title can make you forget that this is about service. This is about not because you're just able to delegate well. It's because you're able to see a vision and carry it. But if you lose sight of your purpose or lose sight of the passion, you won't be able to continue to fill yourself and cater to the vision. So, and then there's a lot of expectations when it comes to leadership, especially like people have expectations for how you should be. And sometimes it's even self-expectations. You may have this goal that you want to reach, and you want to have it at a certain deadline, certain timeline, and you're pushing yourself. So, one thing to look at when you're feeling burnt out is what expectations that you or others make you feel like you always have to be on. I know for me personally, I come from a Caribbean background. Like, they're very much like, by this age you need to have this, by this age you need to do this. They're always comparing you to other children and your cousin is doing this, they're already having a third baby and a husband and a career, and I'm just like, dang. So I always feel like, oh my God, like I gotta do more. Like I gotta put myself out there. I gotta be exceptional. But the truth of the matter is, you are your own person and you know your pace. So when you set these unrealistic expectations for yourself, you put yourself in a loop where you never feel like you are enough. And that's something to look at as far as burnout. So protecting your energy. This one, I could have made a whole presentation about this one by yourself, because protecting your energy, I feel like, is the most important thing, to be honest. Your energy is not unlimited. Unfortunately, we are not going to be here forever. We're not going, we need rest. I mean, if you could go 3-4 days without sleeping, shout out to you. But for me, I love my bed. Your energy is not limited. It needs to be managed like time and money. So the minute you start feeling depleted, you need to allow yourself to be aware of that. At the same time, you got to realize you don't have to do everything. We think with leadership that means that you could do A through Z at the same time. But it's really, I think the biggest skill about leadership is prioritization. It's because you do what matters most. So even with planning, if my mom always says, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So if you're not taking the time to plan, if you're not taking the time to realize like what is the most important thing that you have to do, you'll find yourself day after day not accomplishing what is most important. If you do one important thing a day, you're one step ahead. Whereas if you sit down and try to do everything at once, you'll literally be 1% in never completing everything. So that's something to process as well too. And then you need space to think, rest, or recharge. I think oftentimes we think leadership is like you maximize your time in a sense that like, oh, I always have to be doing this. I have to be available. I got to be on time. I got to do it. Like, yes, you have to set an example, but you do need space. Like you need pauses in your day to recollect yourself. Because if you find yourself on and on and on and on, like you'll burn out. Literally, as I'm talking about this, I'm thinking about a light bulb. If you keep a light bulb on all day, when you go touch the light, it's hot. At some point, you need to turn off the lights, gather your energy, and come back. Or else your creativity, your clarity, or your effectiveness will suffer. And then the biggest thing with protecting your energy is you need to be clear, kind, and firm. And what I'm talking about is your communication. People need to know what you say, how you mean it. Like, and you owe it to yourself and others to be honest. You know your capacity. The biggest thing to protect your energy is also setting your boundaries, making sure that you're communicating clearly your needs, your wants, what's going on, and also doing it in a way where you're not just shutting people out. A lot of people tend to communicate after they've built up all this animosity or built up all this resentment for letting so many things into their space, when actually, if you communicate, you actually give the space to to allow people to help you in your process. And we're going to talk about that in this thing called Crazy Makers. So I'm reading this book called The Artist's Way. It is phenomenal. It basically talks about how to unblock yourself as an artist in any shape or form. We think artists are just for the painters, the dancers, the writers. No, everything is art in a sense, but we become blocked when we allow certain things to make us believe that we're unable to just do and be led. So from The Artist's Way, they describe this group of people, pressures, patterns, habits called crazy makers. And these are things that pull you off course. Obviously, if you're a leadership, it means you're working towards a goal. But of course, as you're working towards a goal, there is going to be some things in the way that you need to be aware and address. And these crazy makers, we think, as I'm talking about this, it may come into your mind as a person, people who just can't honor your schedule, like, and all this stuff. But it could also be patterns. It could also be pressures. It could also be habits that you pick up because it's set to distract you. And these things, they thrive in chaos. Like, they pull you into it as if it's urgent. You wake up in the morning, the first thing is like, oh my God, like I have to check my phone, knowing that you have all these other stuff to do. Or maybe, you want to, you intentionally set an alarm to like wake up early and handle some things. All of a sudden, your crazy maker friend needs you to pick up this phone call because it's an emergency, or needs you to go take them to this thing because it's an emergency. And you pull into it because you feel like it's urgent, but we're going to go into why you're enabling that. Another thing crazy makers do is that they drain your energy and they distract you from your purpose. They take you from what's important to what is loud. They're like trying to fill you in with these temporary voids, knocking you off schedule, knocking you off course, knocking you off task. And it may feel good in the moment, but it's draining at the end of the day because you're not getting closer to what you need to do and who you need to be. Another thing crazy makers do is that they lead to over responsibility, resentment, perfectionism, and people pleasing. So you end up taking a lot more on your plate because the time that you were supposed to use to do what you needed to do, you used it and gave it to the crazy maker. You gave it to your phone. You gave it to the person who wanted to be on the phone for 3 hours. And then you start to resent them. You start to resent even yourself for allowing that happening. And it puts you in this perfectionist, people-pleasing thing because you're not doing what matters most. And they also exploit a lack of boundaries. When we look at these things and we identify like, oh yeah, my best friend who loves talking on the phone for 6 hours a day when I have to do homework, she's a crazy maker. But it all comes from a lack of boundaries at the end of the day. Leadership requires boundaries because you need to let people know where you can be and where you can't be. And so my reflection question for you is, what or who is pulling you off of track, and what boundary needs to be set? Because what we allow at the end of the day is what we tolerate. So if you're not being aware that something is pulling you off track, pretty soon time will pass and you realize you didn't get to certain goals because not of what people did, but what you allowed. And also, one thing about boundaries too, it's never too late to set boundaries. You may have been maneuvering a certain way, and honestly, if you had allowed things for so long and then now you're trying to set a boundary, crazy makers are not going to like it. Crazy makers are not going to like it. But also at the same time, like, you owe it to yourself to be honest in others. So yeah, balancing with purpose and knowing your why. So the main thing here with leadership is you need to learn how to balance. And when I'm talking about balance, I'm not talking about making sure that you fit everything in equal parts. It's aligning your actions with your why. Why do you need to do this task today? What is most important today? And you're not trying to do everything. It's just doing what makes the most sense. And then knowing your why gives you fuel to keep going even when it gets hard. A lot of people get promoted to leadership because they have skill sets that are capable to show that they're able to delegate and manage different tasks. But if you understand why you're being put in that position and what you can offer, then taking the time to remember those things, taking the time to remember the bigger goal, taking the time to reflect on what you're doing and why you're doing it, it'll give you the fuel to keep going even when it gets hard. Leadership is not easy. That's why a lot of people don't want to do it. But people admire leadership because it takes a lot. But when you know your why, when you know why you're doing it, when you embrace the responsibility and being able to delegate well, or just being able to communicate that this may be too much on your plate right now or today, then it gives you the space, and it allows the people who are here in your team to be able to help you. So the reflection question is, does what you're doing today align with your values and goals, or does it go with others' expectations? Because other people may have expectations for you as well that is taking you away from your true purpose. And you want to make sure that you're taking the time to reflect on those. Oh, okay. So, how do we deal with this? At the end of the day, you're burnt out, you're listening to this presentation, you're like, how do I fix this? Like, how do I check this? I noticed, I'm checking all the symptoms, I'm diagnosing myself with burnout. How do we balance this back? First off, you got to check in with yourself. We think that we're not allowed to allow ourselves to feel. You're allowed to feel your feelings, but you're also responsible for how you deal with them. If you sit there and you sulk in and you let it beat you up, or you sit there and you try to ignore it and bury it, it's either gonna happen in one way. You're either gonna stay depressed, or you're gonna crash out. And neither of those reactions are well. So you need to check in with yourself. One thing I try to do is every Sunday is my reset day. Sunday night, I'm looking at my schedule. I'm like, this week was hard. And I tried to check in and see what did I do this week that tried to really take me off course, or what that I allowed. And then also I try to see what worked this week. This week I discovered I'm the type of person, I apologize for the technical difficulties, but okay. Yes. So Sundays are my rest days. I usually use that time to check in with me throughout the week. I'm not maybe always sitting there with a journal or everything, but I try to make each week intentional. So I try to figure out what's draining me or what's sustaining me. I noticed for already, it's only Tuesday. It's only Tuesday, yes. And I'm already realizing that I'm a type of person, if I have me a little matcha or a little coffee to sip on throughout the day, it actually allows me to sit and focus. And I'm also not snacking all the time, because I'm the type of person I always like to snack to keep myself going. But then yesterday I was in class with the itis. So I know what is sustaining me. So check in with yourselves weekly to see what's working for you, what's not working for you, what you could do differently in the weeks coming up. Another thing to do to restore balance is set micro boundaries. So we think that when we finally realize that a lot of the reason why we're imbalanced, or a lot of the reasons why things are not going as planned and things are looking last minute, is because we weren't setting boundaries. Oh, you come off on a boundary high. You're all right, now I'm telling everybody no. Now I'm really not letting anyone in my space. But the point with leadership that people tend to miss is not to be selfish or a bigot. It's to be able to hold space for yourself so that you could be able to pour into others. So start saying no to the small things. I have one girl, she loved calling me on the phone every day. And don't get me wrong, I love speaking to her all day too. But when I got work to do, I'm let me call you later, girl. Let me talk to you. Because then when something really does happen, or I actually do have that space, I feel like I can be able to make space now. I can be able to say yes to the big things. I can be able to steward my time well, because I got all my stuff done, so that I can talk on the phone, or I can rest, or I can take pleasure in those things. So setting micro boundaries, because small no's lead to big yeses. Yes. And then finally, you want to build a rhythm of rest. You want to be able to, just like you schedule all these things. I'm at this point now, I need to put it in a calendar, and I never thought I would get here because I'm not a calendar girly. But just like I schedule my events, my work, my school in my calendar, I also schedule rest. Rest is very important. So, and this could look in most things. Maybe you can't jump on a plane to Cancun for 3 weeks, but you can take some daily pauses. You know that if I'm going to take a little 10-minute break to go in the kitchen and get a cup of water or get a snack, or I'm going to take some time, maybe go in my car for a little bit and just listen to music, or just take some time or take a little 5-minute walk. Make sure that you fit those daily pauses in so that you're not sitting there and feeling burnt out. And with daily pauses, you can also schedule weekly recovery. I try to put my self-care in when I can.
What do you want to be reminded about?
So just like I schedule weekly things, I also schedule my weekly recovery. So if I see that this week is going to be a very big week or a very busy week, I'm going to schedule time to go try a Pilates class. Or I'm going to schedule time to binge watch myself, because I need that recovery. And then also seasonal resets is very important too. I'm a type of person, I strongly believe that everything moves in seasons. So when I feel like a new season is coming up, like for instance, yesterday was the first day of fall. But honestly, for me, the new season started when my first day of classes started. I knew that was a seasonal reset for me. So I know right before classes started, I was looking at my schedule. I was like, okay, let me get myself back into school mode. Let me start pulling out my outfits in advance. Let me realize that school is actually coming. Slow down. So build a rhythm of rest just as much as you build a rhythm of work. Because if you have healthy boundaries, you have healthy spaces, then you're going to be able to balance and align things so that you're not feeling burnt out. Because half the time, people will try to burn you out, but also you burn out yourself too. So some key takeaways with all of this is that burnout is not a badge of honor. I don't know who came up with the fact that if you worked yourself to the bone, that was something to be praised. I am a person that balance is key. Just as much as you work hard, leadership is not something that you have as a title. It's not something that you just you think that you're elected for. It's because of how you steward things. It's how you balance things well. So don't look at it as because you overwork yourself the hardest, that's what makes you the greatest. Because at the end of the day, no one will be feeling the depths of your burnout but you. People are just benefiting from you. Another thing is balance is a part of leadership. The reason why what makes you a leader is not because you're the tallest in the room or anything like that. It's because you're able to balance these things. And then recognizing your crazy makers help you stay focused. So recognize those patterns, those habits, the people, the things that throw you off course. Because of course, as you're working towards things, there's going to be challenges. If you're going to go to the gym and you're trying to set this goal, there are going to be challenges. You're going to realize that the crazy maker may be the fact that you love honey buns all day. And you need to cut that back a little bit. So you need to recognize crazy makers and just patterns in yourself and just things so that you can stay focused on your goals. And don't be so hard with it. Sometimes you can't cut things off cold turkey, but just remember to constantly try to align yourself. And ultimately, remembering your why. Everything to me is intentional. Why you have the job you have, why you're in the place that you're in, why you are surrounded by the people that you're surrounded. But when you understand your true why, what keeps you going, it makes your leadership last. It makes you sustain leadership even when it gets hard. Because when we're talking about leadership, at the end of the day, I'm not telling you that things is just going to be easy. Leadership is going to be easy. It's still going to be complicated, but at least you are allowing yourself to be aware that you need to find alignment. So I do want to leave you with this quote. It says, leadership is a gift. You need to fill your cup, know your purpose, and pour into others. So with that being said, thank you so much. And yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Jen, for a very important and informative presentation. And if you enjoyed this presentation, you want to keep up with what NJ4S Union Hub is doing, just follow us on social media, or the social media is at NJ4S Union. Thank you again for joining us and have a great rest of your day.